Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Spiritborn uniques. We finally got access to them, or pictures of them, essentially, with the patch. And here they all are, right here. This is the rings. This is the second set of rings. This is the boots, armor, and gloves, and we also have helmet, and we have pants, and then we have several weapons. We're going to be going over all of them today. We're going to be talking about their potential uses and getting a better idea of how powerful and overpowered they could potentially be. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the Wound Drinker Ring, the first one, Ancestral Unique, 800 item power, has 37.5% poison resistance, 130 armor. It has a Thorns value of 268 to 373. Now keep in mind that as we go over these rings, these are stat squish rings from the new season, and so the numbers might not seem very high to you right now, but when we get in and get used to the way Season 6 works, the numbers will probably be a lot better than you think. We also have a 88 to 15% damage to poisoned enemies, which is going to be pretty strong for obviously the reasons that this is a poison ring. We also get a 7 to 9% damage reduction from poisoned enemies, which is going to be good for a character that's poisoning everything. And we also get +4 to toxic skin. I'm assuming that's +3 normally, but it's the greater affix version. And we can take a look and see what toxic skin does. So over on Diablo 4.life, we got the build planner, and we can scroll down to Toxic Skin. So here's Toxic Skin. Toxic Skin is an ability that has a passive effect of enemies that attack you are poisoned for 30 to 42% damage over 3 seconds. The active effect is that your toxins overflow, applying the poisoning in a trail and make you unhindered for 5 to 7 seconds. You can also get bonuses like while active, Toxic Skin's poisoning will increase. Toxic Skin's poisoning is increased by 100% over 3 seconds. Or Measured Toxic Skin, which is while Toxic Skin is active, your poisoning deals an additional 25% of its damage over time as critical strikes to vulnerable enemies. And then finally, Replenishing Toxic Skin, which is Toxic Skin's passive increases Thorns damage you deal to poisoned enemies by 100%. So pretty nice one for the Thorns builds. Then the special effect on this is every time you deal Thorns damage, you gain 7 vigor, so you're going to basically be generating essence, or in this case vigor, resource every single time you dish out your Thorns damage, which is really nice. And then you gain Toxic Skin's passive effect. So you're going to get Toxic Skin's passive effect for free, which is kind of interesting. I'm not exactly sure how that works with the fact that if you have the ability, which you probably are going to want the ability, you're also going to get the passive effect. Does that mean you get 2 times the passive effect? Moondrinker has a special effect here, or a flavor text here. This is the inner curve of this band is lined with thorns that tear the skin whenever it is unbound. Next is Ring of the Writhing Moon. Or actually, you know what? Let's talk about Moondrinker for a second, because why not? So Wounddrinker looks like it's designed specifically for a Thorns, probably Gorilla / Centipede build, or maybe even a Centipede / Gorilla build, or full Centipede. It really seems like it's designed around the idea of dishing out Thorns damage and also utilizing the Toxic Skin to poison enemies. There's a lot of synergies between Toxic, the Thorns and the Poison in the tree. So if you are planning on building a Thorns character this season, it looks like the Wounddrinker might be a fun one to play around with. Ring of Writhing Moon. 37.5% lightning resistance and 37.5% poison resistance. 8% critical strike chance, which is not bad. 23% movement speed. Okay. Lucky hit up to a 47.2% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds, which is a pretty high percent chance. +4 to unrestrained power Spiritborn only. Let's take a look at unrestrained power. Unrestrained power. There it is right there. Unrestrained power is you deal 12% increased damage while unhindered or unstoppable. Interesting. A pestilent swarm spawns from you every 10 seconds, dealing 423 poison damage per hit. Your pestilent swarms now orbit around you and generate 1 vigor per. So Pestilent Swarm is an interesting ability that shoots out essentially some, What's the term I'm looking for? It's like these little, like, swarmy, like, little bugs, and the bugs do poison damage. I believe that it's talking about Scourge or Pestilent. It's kind of hard to get a beat on all this stuff because not all the names of everything are currently, like, updated, and they keep kind of changing things around. But I'm pretty sure that it's Scourge. Because it's call forth a wave of insects that bite enemies, fearing and slowing them. Or it could be. It's definitely not Stinger. It's kind of odd because Pestilent Swarm, I'm not even sure, is on this panel. I mean, even if I just type in Pest, nothing highlights. Which I think it's something that got changed from the previous information that we have. But from what I understand about it and what I've actually tested with it on the public test realm, the pestilent swarms are these bugs that kind of shoot out from you like projectiles. And the projectile bugs hit the target and then they kind of explode and they dish out poison damage to the target. This is going to obviously turn your projectile pestilent swarms into more of a orbiting attack that's going to orbit around you and dish out damage to monsters that are nearby you, which actually sounds kind of neat. I saw a little bit of footage of this ring, and it was exactly as you would guess. You shoot out these little bugs, and then once the bugs shoot out, then they start orbiting around you, and they start dishing out damage to everything. It is a poison damage item, just like this one is. So they're both poison damage items, but this one is more on Pestilent Swarm, and this one is more on Toxic Skin. Within this corpse bound carapace, we writhe. Chaotic winds converge to churn your bones. Our beat in breath and ceaseless war to break. The wretched cyclone black beyond the bounds. Balazan's dream. Hmm. I'm also kind of curious about this because it does have movement speed on it and vulnerable if it's not meant to synergize with, say, like the Eagle, as an example, because the Eagle does have a lot of like movement-based stuff. On top of this, it also seems to be giving one of the Eagle passives, which has to do with movement, because obviously keeping moving unhindered and unstoppable, and that's a lot of things that you can get from the Eagle. There's also the Brilliance passive, which gives you increased damage for the more movement speed you have, and this one is also giving you increased movement speed on top of that, which is odd for a ring. The next one is Band of First Breath. 37.5% lightning resistance, 130 armor, 10% maximum life, which is really neat. People are going to be really interested in maximum life stuff this season because of the way that maximum life works. It's just everybody has a lot less maximum life than they've had in the past. It also gives 125% damage for 4 seconds after gaining a resolve stack. So the resolve stacks are things that the gorilla has. It's basically something that you make to create damage reduction and other stuff. Like, for instance, under this one right here, you see enhanced sharp rock splitter. Rock splitter increases your block chance by 15%. This one right here, rock splitter's third attack knocks enemies back and grants resolve per enemy hit. So each stack of resolve is going to give you damage reduction, and there are ways to increase the total number of stacks of resolve. You can generate them in various ways. There's a lot of ways to generate resolve. You can even generate resolve while generating other stuff. I've been playing around with the tree and realizing exactly how many different ways there are to gain resolve, and it's pretty easy. So you get a nice little damage bump every single time you generate a resolve stack. A 12.5% lucky hit chance while you have an active barrier, as well as +4 to auspicious. Let's take a look and see what auspicious is. So here we go. Auspicious is after not taking damage for 5 seconds, you gain up to 30% of your maximum life as barrier for over 10 seconds. So you get a 10-second barrier if you stand still, if you don't take damage for at least 5 seconds. There's actually a rune that's really cool. I think it's called Neo, and it's the same thing. They actually reduce the amount of time that you had to not take damage on it, but it's the same thing. Like, if you don't take damage, you get an effect. This one's if you don't take damage, you get an effect. So it seems like they're kind of designing this one around the idea of you having a barrier and then giving you many points in auspicious to give you more barrier. The special effect on this is casting Evade consumes 1 stack of Resolve to generate 40 Vigor. Gain Armored Hide's passive effect. So the Armored Hide is a skill in the defensive tree, which is passive, gain 1 Resolve every 5 seconds. And we also get active in case your stealth becoming unstoppable and gaining 100% block chance for 4.2 seconds. Then we get activating Armor Hide grants you maximum resolve and increases your thorns by X duration. When you evade through enemies with Armored Hide active, you deal 100% of your thorns damage to them and heal for 5% of your maximum life per hit. Or while active, Armored Hide increases your block reduction by 5% and nearby enemies up to 20%. So very interestingly here, we have a situation where not only are we getting maximum resolve, but we also get an increase in thorns, and we can also dish out our thorns damage to a target through Armored Hide, and this ring is, of course, based around Armored Hide. So we have an interesting situation here where this is actually building into a thorns build, because, of course, we're getting the Armored Hide passive effect, which is going to give us the added resolve one every 5 seconds. We're going to add a barrier onto the list, and we're going to be able to obviously spam Armored Hide whenever we want to, if we want to, because of course every single time we use Armored Hide we get more resolve. You could potentially build around that, or you could just not use it at all and you could just go with the passive effect, only getting the resolve and not even probably putting the skill on your bar, which is a whole other way of doing it. But it also has to do with the evade. So casting evade consumes 1 stack of resolve, right? Well, if you take a look at the Armored Hide, we've got things like, for instance, this, which is evading through enemies, has you deal thorns damage to the enemy, right? So it's kind of almost like synergistic in a way, because they're rewarding you for evading, and you're also being rewarded for evading as long as you have Armor Hide active. So not a terrible setup. The flavor text on this is: a gentle whisper glides upon the winds. The gentle whisper glides upon the winds. The words elude the grasp of mortal ken. They weave through the soul like a melody. Forgotten, and from this arises a name. Adarja? The first breather? I don't know how to pronounce that. All right, let's move on to the next set of rings, because there's a whole other set of rings. And this is the Peacemonger's Signet. The Peacemonger's Signet is 800 item power. It's 37.5 fire resistance, 130 armor. It has 6% dodge chance added on it, which is interesting. +4 all stats for ferocity or resolve stack, plus 3 to 4. So basically, you get more stacks in that particular thing. Now, this is something that's really interesting because each of them has a specific purpose, right? So Resolve gives you damage reduction for each stack, and Ferocity gives you attack speed for each stack. So this would be a very interesting ring to add into a build. +2 to Fueled, and we can look at Fueled. Let's look at Fueled. Fueled. So this is the Tiger or Jaguar. This is the Jaguar passive. Gain increased life on kill equal to 15% of your maximum life while you have at least 4 stacks of ferocity. Okay. And then we also get Perseverance. Perseverance. Oh, I typed that in wrong, didn't I? There we go. And Perseverance is the other side, which is gain 1.5% additional damage reduction per stack of resolve. So I see what they're going with this ring. They're going with a ring that gives you more bonuses for stacking ferocity and stacking resolve. So you're getting attacks faster. You're getting more damage reduction, which is not bad at all. While you have at least 4 stacks of ferocity, you gain 7 vigor per second. So also a regeneration there. Gaining ferocity also grants resolve. I'm assuming that's the other way around. I think there's probably some typos in these, because why would they have the same thing written twice? I would guess that it's probably like this. Gaining ferocity also grants resolve. Gaining resolve also grants ferocity. I'm assuming that that's what's going on. Because this ring seems to be designed around both ferocity and resolve, getting yourself increased attack speed and also getting yourself the damage reduction. And then it makes it so that you can gain one by gaining the other. So you basically have both at the same time, which is certainly not terrible. And then it gives you more stacks in both of them, so you can have a higher amount. This seems like it's going to be a really powerful, like, all-around ring, just to give characters more damage reduction and faster attack speed, while at the same time not really working very offensively, though. The 7 vigor per second could be nice as a resource regeneration, but there's really not a lot of offensive stats here. It's really just a lot of defensive stats from the standpoint of gaining more damage reduction. I guess you could technically say that the increased attack speed is a little bit of, offensive capability. But dodge chance is defensive. The fueled is life per kill, which is defensive. The perseverance is damage reduction, which is defensive. And then, of course, we get the 7 vigor, which is not defensive, but it is resource. And then we're also gaining resolve when we generate ferocity, which is more defensive. Which is a whole other thing. It's a very defensive ring with a little bit of offense tied into it. In Natsalarwaka, no blood shall mar the earth. Even bitter enemies must forgo their blades before entering the haven. Breaking this accord will invoke Wasi Patsu's wrath, Oral Oaxi's scripture. The next one is Ring of the Midday Hunt, 37.5% fire resistance and 37.5% poison resistance. It has 14 to 23 life on kill. I've never been a big fan of life on kill. I think it's a wasted stat. 15% attack speed increase, which is always welcome. 23% movement speed for 2 seconds after killing an enemy. Again, something that has to do with killing monsters to get a benefit, which basically means they're completely useless on bosses. Plus 4 to nourishment, which I'm assuming is plus 3 in its normal state. Let's take a look at nourishment. Nourishment is the centipede skill. It is your healing is increased by 20% whenever you heal. Your poison damage is increased by 9% for 3 seconds. So this one is going to give you additional poison damage for healing. So it's going to give you healing, and it's going to give you additional poison damage for healing. Your maximum vigor is increased by 50%, and killing an enemy grants you 7 vigor. While you have ferocity, your poisoning effects deal their damage across 33% of normal duration Spiritborn. So this is a kind of an interesting and very specific ring. It almost tells you how to use it, which I don't really particularly like. But I mean, it should be very obvious to anyone who's looking at it. Number one, it has to do with poisoning effects, which is pretty much tied almost directly to the centipede. Number two, it's tied to ferocity, which is tied directly to the jaguar. So this item would be something that you would use in combination with jaguar/centipede skills. And it's tied very closely around killing things and getting bonuses for killing things. It has life on kill, which is killing things, movement speed for killing enemies, which is killing things, nourishment, which is poisoning and healing yourself, which also ties back to life on kill, which is killing things. And then the effect itself, which is your maximum vigor is increased by 50%, and killing an enemy grants 7 vigor, so again, killing things. The flavor text on this says, at midday thundered the first brother, Nyanmoyo, Lord of Predators, survival in his blessing, hunting is his prayer, honor him, and prowess shall be your reward. The Niti say verse 4. Ring of the Midnight Sun, the last of the rings. 37.5% fire, 37.5% lightning, 121 dexterity. I'm assuming dexterity is the main stat for the Spiritborn. 50% critical strike damage, 8.8% cooldown reduction, and plus 4 to Mirage. Let's take a look and see what Mirage is. Mirage is gain 50% increased dodge chance during evade. Whenever you dodge, you gain 15% critical strike chance for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is not very long. I don't know why they persist on making these buffs that are so tiny. 3 seconds is barely enough time to get like 1 or 2 attacks off after your evade has finished its animation, which I'm sure that the 3 seconds probably starts like the second that your animation is supposedly done, but you're not actually able to attack anything yet. I know I sound super pessimistic, but the little tiny itty bitty teeny weeny buffs that they like to put on stuff are just so bleh. When you critically strike, you regain 50% of the vigor you spent in the last 2 seconds. Again, look at these little tiny buffs in the last 2 seconds. Gain counterattack's passive effect, Spiritborn only. So counterattack is a skill, I believe. Yes, it's a Jaguar skill. Counterattack is the charges 2, cooldown 20 seconds, lucky at 30%. Passive, gain 10% dodge chance and automatically retaliate against close enemies for 80 to 120, 12% of the damage when you dodge their attacks. Active, dodge all direct attacks for 3 seconds per cast, up to 6 seconds. Counterattack cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds per stack of ferocity you have. When you dodge a control impairing attack with a counterattack, it will reflect that crowd control to all close enemies for 2 seconds, or counterattack passively increases your critical strike damage by 6% for every close enemy up to 30%. So gaining the passive effect on this would give you the 10% dodge chance automatically, retaliate against close enemies for the damage. So with this ring, you're going to automatically retaliate set up with the counterattack ability without even actually using the counterattack ability, which sounds pretty darn cool. And if you were to set up a character utilizing the counterattack passive effect, I mean, this would free you up to use something else in that slot. There is also a very interesting way that you can set this character up through the aspects. When I was playing around with the Spiritborn, I came across this ability, which is the Bristleback aspect. When you dodge or block an attack, you trigger 350% of your thorns against the attacker. So if you were to tie this together with the Bristleback aspect, you could potentially make it so that every single time you dodge, you counterattack, and every single time you dodge, you also apply thorns to the target, which could be a really interesting combination of effects. Moving on to the boots, we have Scorn of the Earth. Scorn of the Earth is a +2 max evade charge, and it also has attacks reduce evade's cooldown, so it has both. That's pretty crazy. It has 23% movement speed, which is always wanted on boots. We've got Soar deals up to 275% damage based on the distance traveled. So traveling further away gives you more damage. Soar grants 20% maximum life as barrier for 1.5 seconds. 20% maximum life, that's nice. But 1.5 seconds is not really very long. +4 to the Soar ability itself. And basically what this does is Soar is kind of like a short-range teleport from what I saw in the videos. And I don't really know how else to put it. It's fly into the air, create a cloud, which makes enemies at your target location vulnerable for 5 seconds, and then you crash down upon them, dealing damage. You also have the Enhanced Soar, which is the next hit against an enemy struck by Soar is guaranteed critical strike. If Soar hits no enemies, you gain 50% movement speed for 3 seconds. Or Soar's cloud remains around you for 4 seconds after landing to continue to make enemies vulnerable. And Soar makes you unstoppable for 4 seconds. So this particular ring is designed around Soar and the general idea of teleporting your character around, so it's essentially a teleport item. Go fast. Why are you stealing my necklace? Here, take it if you want it. Go ahead. I'll put it on your head. How about that? And then what are you going to do about it? So the special effect on this is your evade is now a soar, very similar to the way that the Oculus works, in that you're making your evade into or your teleport into your evade, essentially. And this allows you to, whenever you evade, you gain access to your teleport. Your teleport cooldown essentially becomes your evade cooldown in this situation. And now soar deals 50% times increased damage as well. So you can use it offensively, or you can use it like just movement or defensively. Depending on how you set up the soar ability and what skills you choose, you can also change essentially how it works. As you can see here, you can either make it give you unstoppable, which is highly defensive, or you can set it up so that it makes enemies vulnerable, which is very offensive, right? Sky spirits weave the winds, thunder is their laughter, and auroras their crowns. Those they bless learn to scorn the earth from above. It is but a distant memory. Lintel VII. What is that, 567? Next we have Jacinth Shell, which is an armor piece. So it's going to be competing, of course, with Tyraels and various other armor pieces that you might want to have access to, like the new passive armor. It has 457 life, which is, I think, pretty standard for the new life values. 23 life on hit, which is not terrible. Life on hit is not a terrible option. And there is a lot of healing stuff involved in the Spiritborn, so keep your eyes out on that. 22.5% damage reduction while injured. Damage reduction while injured is back. Definitely didn't expect that. I don't think I've seen damage reduction while injured in several patches. +4 endurance. Let's look up endurance and let's see what endurance is. Endurance is the block. Is that the block one? No. Casting a defensive skill grants 5 vigor. So 3 points would be 15 vigor. 4 points would be 20 vigor. Spending vigor heals you for 10% of your maximum life. Every second, your active cooldowns each drain 10% maximum life from you to reduce their durations by 3 seconds. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. So every second, any active cooldown that you have drains 10% of your maximum life. And then if you can maintain 33% of your life, you can get the injured damage reduction, but that's going to be really difficult to maintain. That is kind of cool, though. I mean, having... it's kind of like a double-edged sword, though, here, isn't it? Because if you spend Vigor, you are going to very easily maintain your life because you're going to heal 10% of your maximum life by spending Vigor. However, every second that your active cooldowns each drain 10% of your maximum life from you, you reduce the durations by 3 seconds, right? So if you're constantly spending, you should be able to keep your HP full pretty much all the time, and you could probably work this really well into the Centipede, because honestly, the Centipede has a lot of healing-related things, healing damage bonuses, healing increases, and all sorts of other things that would definitely help you maintain your health. Or you can let your health drain and get that damage reduction while injured, which I'm not really sure I would want to do that. This ceremonial armor was once adorned during the He Sutsar Puche, where the sacred blood is drawn by Jacinth, lancets, and offered to the flames. It retains the sense of incensed smoke and scorched copper. I'm not sure what anything about that armor. Craze of the Death God gloves. 8% critical strike chance, not bad. +4 to Touch of Death, Spiritborn only. Touch of Death is an actual skill. It's this one right here, which is strike an enemy and infect them, dealing 5% damage and applying 420% poison damage over 9 seconds. When the infection expires or the host dies, a swarm hatches and seeks out enemies for 9 seconds, dealing 14% damage per hit. You can have 3 swarms active at a single time. We also get +2 to Nourishment, which we know for a fact is the healing one that we just looked at. That was this one. Yes, your healing is increased by 20% whenever you heal, and your poisoning damage is increased by 9% for 3 seconds. So definitely going to enhance the poison damage of the item. Then we also get Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom is right here. You gain 45% increased poison resistance, and your maximum poison resistance is increased by 9%. Max poison resistance is nice. Poison res not really so important. Then the special effect is when you would take direct damage, it is instead distributed as poisoning damage over the next 10 seconds, but it is increased by 30 to 0%. Lucky hit, direct damage has up to a 25% chance based on your poison's life percentage to infect an enemy with Touch of Death. Interesting. So the entire item is revolving around poisoning yourself, and there is stuff in the tree that has to do with like when you were poisoned. And I was kind of confused about some of these things, but now it kind of makes sense, like from that perspective, because obviously you're poisoning yourself, and so you're getting a benefit from poisoning yourself, which I guess makes sense. Poison is nasty stuff, though. So, Tan seized a spear and drove it thrice into his mad brother Tan. Alas, the craftier of the twin gods wove one last cunning snare. In place of blood, the wound wept venom and consumed all in its wake. Those seem like they might be really crazy. Next, we're moving on to the helmet and pants. So we're trying to get all these done. I know it's going to take me a little while. I'll try and put some timestamps in here for you guys. So the next one is Harmony of Ebewaka. Harmony of Ebewaka is a helmet, and it gives plus 65 all stats, 12.5% movement speed, 10% damage reduction, and it gives plus 4 to velocity, Spiritborn only. Velocity, I'm pretty sure, is this one right here? No? Velocity. Where is velocity? There it is. Velocity is generate 3 vigor each second while moving if you have dealt damage in the last 5 seconds. So it's a way that you can regenerate as long as you're keeping moving. Interesting. According to your secondary spirit hall choice, your skills and all additional jaguar, eagle, gorilla, or centipede skills, your skills deal 30% times increased damage per spirit type they have. So basically, what this does, and it's really interesting, I was looking at this earlier, is when you choose a patron spirit or whatever for your character, all of the abilities gain the core skill that you choose. I'm not sure if I can choose my spirit here. So we're going to choose a primary spirit, which is the Jaguar spirit, right? And then once you choose the Jaguar spirit as your primary, all of the abilities, whether they're centipede, whether they're gorilla, whether they're eagle, all gain the Jaguar tag, which makes scaling them much easier and obviously more powerful, right? Well, the secondary spirit doesn't do that. However, in the case of this helmet, what they're saying is that when you choose your secondary spirit, you're going to be choosing the tag that is going to be used on all of them again. Same thing as the first one. So it's really quite interesting in how much damage you could potentially get. Then we can take things even further. So this is also very interesting to think of, is that at the bottom it says your skills deal 30% times increased damage per spirit type they have, right? So, as an example, if we were to get a build set up utilizing this helmet to its utmost maximum, what it would involve is it would involve using a skill that is not a Jaguar skill or not whatever your primary skill is. So let's assume that you pick Jaguar as your primary skill. You would then use something that's not a Jaguar skill. Like, let's say, for instance, we wanted Stinger to be our main ability. Stinger would then become a Jaguar skill because we have chosen Jaguar. With the helmet, we could then choose a secondary. And again, we would not choose Centipede because Centipede is what the skill that we're actually using. And in this case, we would choose something else, like, for instance, Eagle or Gorilla. And the reason why we would do this is because now our Stinger ability would have 3 tags. It would have the Centipede skill tag that it starts with, it would have the Jaguar skill from the primary, and it would have the Gorilla skill or the Eagle skill from the secondary. And this would allow us to get a huge bonus to our Stinger ability of 30% times, 30% times, and 30% times, which is a really nice 90% multiplier from this particular helmet, and also allowing us to use all 3 of the modifiers to scale our Stinger ability. Because now we can scale it with Jaguar, we can scale it with Eagle, and we can scale it with Centipede, or we can scale it with Jaguar, Gorilla, and Centipede, depending on how we want to set things up. So this helmet, I think, is going to be a really, really popular helmet, much akin to Tempest Roar on the Druid. Very, very powerful, just like Tempest Roar. Only Ebewaka has walked amid a dozen guardians. In death, they waged war for his spirit, yet none prevailed. Thus the guardians shared dominion, granting Ebewaka to roam freely amid all their realms. Next is Loyaty's Mantle. Loyaty's Mantle is 65 all stats, 12.5% movement speed, 10% damage reduction. Seems identical to Harmony of Ebewaka, except it also has velocity too, so it is identical. That might be a typo, I don't know. But it does have a completely different unique effect. The unique effect is while your Spirit Hall choices match, their bonuses are 100% more potent. Skills of their base spirit gain 60% vigor cost reduction, and skills of their base spirit gain 60% cooldown reduction. So what this one does is completely different than what the Harmony of Ebewaka does. The Harmony of Ebewaka is making it so that you can have multiple tags on a skill so that your like Jaguar skill can also be an Eagle or Gorilla skill or something along that nature. But Loyaty's Mantle is making it so that you choose both the same. So if you choose Jaguar and Jaguar, then your Jaguar skills become more potent because you are in harmony with yourself. Like you have all the same spirit choices, essentially, right? And so they're giving you a pretty big bonus as a result. During the trial of mists, a small spirit noticed an unclaimed boy. In pity, it spared him. I will follow you always, vowed the boy. He remained true even after Abulan called the spirit home. The last one before we get to the weapons is the Protection of the Prime. Protection of the Prime is 160 armor, 457 maximum life, 300% damage for 4 seconds after dodging an attack, which does seem to be a common theme with the Spiritborn, is dodging and blocking. 17.5% damage reduction while standing still. Interesting. Plus 3 to defensive skills, which defensive skills includes pretty much all of the ones on the left-hand side here. They're actually in kind of an odd spot. Usually you expect the defensive skills to be here, but they're actually right here. And this includes Scourge, Counterattack, Concussive Stomp, and Armored Hide, depending on how you build your character. While moving, you gain 30% dodge chance. After standing still for 2 seconds, you become unstoppable until you move. So, that's kind of neat. I'm not really entirely sure how being unstoppable while you're standing still is super valuable, but I guess it could potentially prevent you from getting locked in a stun loop. Think about it like this, like you're running along and you get hit with like a freeze or something, and the freeze makes you stand still. Well, the freeze is going to make you stand still, and then after you're standing still for like 2 seconds, you get unstoppable. And then once you move, you're no longer unstoppable. So if you get constantly CC'd and you get stuck for a certain period of time, it's going to break you free from that, which is actually pretty powerful. To commune with spirits, listen to whispers unseen. Root yourself unto the earth and let its pulse still the mind. Hear the ancient guardians, they rise to aid you. Yesvet, the first Spiritborn. I think that's Yvet's. Now we're on to the weapons. So, first weapon is the mythic weapon. This is Nesekem The Herald. It is a mythic unique glaive. Now, there are 2 different types of weapons for the Spiritborn. The glaive, which is more offensive, and the staff, which is more defensive, and we'll go over that as well. But we also have this massive 400% damage to elites on the passive effect here. 200 to all stats because it is a two-handed weapon. 695 life, which I'm assuming is just 457 life with the greater affix on it, which makes it more. 250% critical strike damage, 450 overpower damage. Very generic so far, nothing too special on there, like to a specific skill or an ability. Every 5 seconds, you randomly mark a nearby enemy. Marked enemies are vulnerable, and your attacks against them are guaranteed to critically strike and overpower. Hitting a marked enemy 10 times clears the mark from them. Interesting. Sounds like it would be really powerful versus bosses. Probably a lot of damage. In the days of Aja Yishik ruled the Nahatu, the Phoenix constellation crown fell in burning glory from it was. God, did you steal my key, you little turd? You stole it, didn't you? I was wondering where it was. Let me reread that. In the days of Ajal Yashik ruled Nahatu, the Phoenix constellation's crown fell in burning glory. From it was forged a blade that withered valor, heralding an age of despair. As a mythic unique, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to obtain. I'm actually not really too interested in this one. I'm actually more interested in these. We're going to talk about these. Wushe Nak Pa, Ancestral Unique Glaive. This one has a passive effect of attacks reduce the ultimate cooldown by 0.4 seconds. 188 dexterity, which seems to be the main stat for this character. 290% ultimate damage, which this one it seems to be based around ultimates. Casting an ultimate skill restores 52 primary resource. That's kind of powerful. A +4 to supremacy, Spiritborn only. Let's take a look at supremacy. Supreme Beast. Any enemies you kill while ultimate skill is active grants you a stack of supremacy, each increasing your damage by 3% up to 30% times when an ultimate skill ends, you gain 5 stacks of supremacy, but you begin to lose 1 stack every second. Casting an ultimate skill grants or amplifies its matching primary spirit hall bonus with 100% potency for 15 seconds. Your ultimate skills each gain an additional skill type. The Seeker is focus skill, the Hunter is a mobility skill, the Devourer is a potency skill, and the Protector is a defensive skill. So it gives you other ways to scale your ultimate skills, basically. Because, well, if you're if you're running the defensive skills, you know, and then you have like plus bonuses, does that mean plus skills also apply to the Protector for plus skills and things like that? If you have like plus defensive skills? So you get a 100% bonus to your primary spirit hall bonus for 15 seconds. And your ultimate skills each gain additional skill types. You can only have one ultimate skill, of course, but it seems like this one is based on any ultimate skill that you might want, and it's also going to amplify the effects, which sounds kind of insane when you think about it. I don't know exactly how that would work, but looking at the primary bonuses, I mean, like the gorilla, for instance, gives you 100% of your thorns damage to enemies and 10% maximum life up to 40, right? So does that mean it's 200% thorns to enemies and up to 20% maximum life? That seems kind of ridiculous. Or like the centipede is hitting an enemy with centipede reduces their damage by 2.5%. So is that 5%? And then slows them by 10%, which is 20. At stacking a maximum up to 8 times. So I don't know. They also changed the Jaguar Spirit one, so that one's not quite the same as it was before. The next one is one I'm super excited about. It's Sepazontec. Sepazontec is an ancestral unique quarterstaff, and this one comes with the 45% block chance, which is pretty neat. 242 dexterity, 6% basic lucky hit chance bonus, a 35% chance for basic skills to deal double damage, which is really nice. On top of this, it also has +6 to follow through, which is one of the passives that actually enhances basic damage for this particular character. Follow through is right here. It's your basic skills deal 15 times increased damage and double this bonus for third casts. And the really cool thing about this is that the weapon has an additional bonus. So right now you see it's got +6 to follow through. So that means we could have 3 in there and then 6 more. So 6, 7, 8, 9. So we can have what, 15, 15, 30, 45, 60. I think that's about right? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, actually, no, 3, 6, 9. So 15, 15. So 45%, right? So we'd have 45% multiplier here. Well, a unique effect on this item is your basic skills deal 100% increased damage and always use their third attack, right? So this means that, well, we always get the double. So now instead of 45%, now we've got double of that, which is, of course, going to be, what is that, 60 plus 30, so 90%. So we're getting a 90% multiplier basically added in from adding that to the equation, which is kind of crazy. And then on top of that, it says every third cast of a basic skill strikes 3 times, which sounds insane. Now, I've already like spent a little bit of time trying to build a character around this. I played around with it the other day, and it basically revolves around using all 4 of the basic skills. And it's because there's another aspect which works very well with the basic skills, and that is this one right here, which is the aspect of combined strikes. Each different basic skill you cast increases your all of your damage by 25% for 10 seconds. So I'm kind of building on the idea of using all the basic skills to get basically all my damage multiplied, which sounds really cool. To the silent skies, the hunter Etzlek raised his staff and then smote the Newman. Release her, came his cries, as he desecrated the hallowed ground. On the third strike, the spirit answered. The last one is the Rod of Kepeleke. This is the only one that's given me pause from using the Sepazontec, because it also has a very interesting effect, and you guys may be actually kind of excited about this one. This one is 24 maximum resource, It has the same block chance, of course, that the other staff does because they're both staves. And it has 100% critical strike damage, 35% chance for core skills to hit twice, which is similar to the way that the basic skills works. And then it also has +5 to velocity, which we looked up before. Velocity, I believe, is it this one? Let's just type it in. It's this one. Generate 3 vigor each second while moving if you have dealt damage in the last 5 seconds. So this one is set up very interestingly, but the main effect, the core effect of this is the really exciting part. Your core skills are now additionally basic skills and are now free to cast, but deal up to 30% reduced damage based on their vigor cost. When cast at maximum vigor, your core skill consumes all vigor to return to full damage. Cast at their largest size and become guaranteed critical strikes with 3% times increased critical strike damage for each point of vigor spent this way. So it's a very interesting item that turns your core skills into basic skills and makes some very interesting, fun playtime things that you can do here. And your core skills now become basic and core skills at the same time. They gain both modifiers, and you can scale them based on core, and you can also scale them based on basic, which means you could also potentially use Aspect of Combined Strikes, and you could also potentially use the follow-through ability, which is going to give you basic damage to your core skills, which is another way that you could potentially do it. And since the core skills become basic skills, you can scale them with Moonrise, you can scale them with a bunch of other effects like Aspect of Adaptability and so forth and so on, which is going to be actually really interesting. Beyond the world disc doth lie the keeper serpent Kepeleke. Ceaseless the serpent grows, and thus must ever consume his own tail, lest the world be overtaken. Lintel XII Spiritborn. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these fun little adventures. This is just a peek, obviously, into the world of Season 6 and the expansion with the new unique items that are on the way. I will have some full versions of these eventually once I get my hands on them and can actually play around with the uniques and get a better idea of how they actually work. But this is about the best I can do for right now. Hopefully this helps you guys in making your choices for like what kind of Spiritborn you want to make for Season 6. We only got 4 days and 9 hours and 27 minutes until the season launches. And why are you being such a butt? That's all I want to know. Why are you being a butt? That's right. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. And as always, keep watching.
Mr. Goody Two Shoes, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Ginger Evil Mentor here. Why bother farming when you can go to MMOEXP.com and simply purchase your items in gold? GGM would have you farm the items. What a pathetic being. Use code GEM Ginger Evil Mentor for 6% off your entire purchase. And don't tell Ginger Gaming Mentor that I was here.